So, the sermon title this week is The Nation's Test, Whether They Know God or Not. But actually, it's a very practical, local thing. I mean, I'll wrap that up in the end. But let me tell you something. And I have a little illustration in the beginning. If I could boil down the primary thing we're going to be talking about today, what a lot of people forget, is that my role that God has given me is far more important than money. Not that money's not evil. It's okay to earn a paycheck. People get confused about that. The Bible says in 1 Timothy 6, the love of money is the root of all evil. Money itself is no more different than a tool, okay? But there are people that, well, let me give my illustration and I'll come back to that. So, years ago, in Sunday school, I did a series on the Crusades. You might say, boy, that sounds like a bad one. Well, it has good and bad points. But bottom line was, I got a textbook from a college, and I checked it out. And what was interesting was, the guy inside, in his preference, I don't think he was a born-again Christian, was like, oftentimes, modern historians take a modern mindset and try to translate that back in time to earlier days. Now, again, this guy wasn't a born-again Christian. He goes, but I think they're doing a great disservice. And he did not paint the Crusades as this lovely, wonderful time. But nor did he try to read modern times and modern ideas into it. I thought he did a great job. It was a gigantic text. And he was a college professor himself saying, I disagree with a lot of the other college professors. I think they have a very different slant, which affects the view of history. So why is this important to our thing today? Well, I'm about to read something from one of the... This is actually a quote from a book back in like 1913. It's been republished, so it has a foreword by a modern Christian. But one idea today that modern historians push about all nations is money is all that matters. And if you want to understand history, understand money. And I don't think that that's true. I don't think that's true at all. Money can influence things, and sometimes it does have something to do with things. Sometimes money's not important at all. How do I know that? Listen to the founding of our country. And again, this is written over 100 years ago. The wife of John Adams was born in social superior. You're like, oh, she must be rich. According to the conventions of this is in Old English, because this was written a long time ago. This wasn't written by modern people. Conventions of the community, founded almost exclusively on the motives of religious zeal, and where the ordinary distinctions of society were in great degree subverted. And the leaders of the church, though without worldly possessions to boast of, were held in the highest honor. What it's saying there, if you didn't catch the Old English, is that in early America, and like all cities and civilizations, there were some people that did care about money. But there were whole communities where money was not the driving factor of your life or its importance. So why does that matter? Well, we're going to dig into the Bible today and find out that all time periods struggle with the love of money. And understand something, is that money does not have to drive you. And in early America, it didn't drive all the communities. And in fact, I know that's true because there was a great revival. And if people are close to the Lord, money is not the most important things in their life. And it happened before our revolution. So a lot of these people were coming out of this revival. A lot of these people were in a very different place than we are in our modern mindset where there's a movie, David brought up a movie, so it was an advertisement. Money isn't everything. And then underneath, yeah, right. But it really isn't everything. So let's get into it today. Go ahead. General Bible facts about the rich and the poor. If we're going to talk about role being more important than money, let's talk about the rich and the poor. God has blessings for the rich and the poor. You know, I was going to reread some of it, but I don't think I will. David did a great job reading it. The story Nathan the prophet tells David is something that rings true. There was a rich guy that had tons of flocks. And that's okay. Abraham also had. Remember him and Lot? Remember the problem? They had too many animals. And they're like, hey, we got to separate. They weren't sinning. They just were too blessed. They're like, oh, we just got too much. Another person was Job. Job did not experience great persecution because he had money. Job experienced great persecution because he loved the Lord. And Satan said it was because of his money. Satan said the only reason Job loves you is because you've given him lots of money. If you take away his money, he's going to hate you with the idea of money is everything. God said, I don't think that that's true. And so bottom line is, I want to tell you something. In the story, the poor guy had this one animal, right? And it was like a family member. How many times have you seen someone poor that's greatly blessed by something very simple, just so blessed by it? God has blessings for rich people, and God has blessings for poorer people. And just because you're rich or because you're poor doesn't mean that the Lord hates you or whatever. And so the point of the story was, the evil part of the story wasn't that the rich guy had a lot of animals and the poor guy had one. It was the fact that they were so blessed by this animal, and the rich guy in his selfishness, right? That was the problem. It wasn't the fact that he had money. It was the fact that he was greedy, and so he took what wasn't his and took away the blessing of someone much poorer than him. That was the idea. So the first thing, by the way, this is going to be very important to our lesson. It's God. It's going to sound so inane, but it's going to be a blessing. God has blessing for the rich and poor. Go ahead. Second, the Bible commands us to be content with what we have. Boy, that sounds so basic. And having food and raiment, let us be content. I don't have time to get an entire passage of 1 Timothy 6. 1 Timothy 6 is a magnum opus of money and living for God. It is incredible what it says. But a central thought in that passage is, look, if you've got clothes and you have food, be content. Again, sounds so inane, pedantic, pastor. Wait until we get into Jeremiah. This stuff is going to be very relevant. Go ahead. And the last is, the problem is when we want more than what the Creator has given us and we hurt others to get it. The golden rule, right? It's not whoever has the gold makes the rules. It's biblical, right? Do to others as you would like them to do unto you. Think about how much better anything in our society would be if people had that attitude. Now, before I go any further, let me say something. I think modern culture misunderstands this teaching. Sometimes being firm with people is a blessing to them. Sometimes some people who are locked in jail, some young people are like, I was out of control. And you know what I've heard a lot of people say? I had to get to the bottom before I looked up to God. Well, how do you get to the bottom? Sometimes it's you get consequences. So sometimes the police officer that locks you up or comes to your house and says, hey, we're going to have to... Sometimes they're actually blessing you. Do you understand that? Sometimes having consequences is a blessing sometimes. Because sometimes it turns you away from your sin. So some people think what this means is you should just let anything happen. That's ridiculous. God may lead you at... God may lead you at points to show mercy and allow bad things to happen to you. But there are other times where I think God will lead you to not allow that either. And be like, no, I'm so sorry. We're not going to allow this. I know you think I hate you, but I don't. Okay, you're like, great. What does this have to do with us and the money thing? Watch this. Go ahead. This is a fascinating story. Jeremiah 13, 16 through 17. So, we're talking about a king. Here's what the Bible says. It says, woe to him, NIV translation here, woe to him who builds his palace by unrighteousness, his upper rooms by injustice, making his own people work for nothing, not paying them for their labor. When you look at this passage, this is not general information. It's literally talking to a real person who has literally been making his palace bigger by making his subjects work for nothing. And so God starts out his address to this king saying, you know what? He says, woe to you. You are oppressing people. You are robbing the blessing of poorer people by not paying them for what... How are you able to buy gifts for your family or support the Lord's ministry, whatever you do? Well, you probably make some sort of paycheck, right? But if your boss cheats you of that paycheck somehow, do you understand? Suddenly you're not so blessed anymore. And God says to this king, he says, dude, you're expanding your palace by basically cheating people. Now watch what he says next. Go ahead. Oh, yeah, you know what, Jay? I'm going to come back to that. I want to stay on the train of thought. So let's go on and I'll come back to that. Thank you. So he imagines new and bigger house. And oh, by the way, NLT King James also put this well, but here's what NIV says. He says, I will build myself a great palace with spacious upper rooms. So he makes large windows in it, panels it with cedar, and decorates it red. Oh, no. It's the next verse that I really like. All three translations do a good job with that. But basically, he has in mind, he lives in a palace. But he's like, man, I'm going to make, this is going to be great. I'm going to make this gigantic palace. It's going to be fantastic. So he imagines a new, bigger house. He's a king already. He already has a palace. Do you understand that? This guy already lives in a super nice house compared to any one of his subjects. He is blessed beyond measure. And God's going to get into that in the next verse. So understand something. In the beginning, God starts out saying, man, woe to you people who take advantage of other people and take more than what God's given you by robbing from other people. And then he says, oh, here's what you want. You want this big, beautiful house. And then he says this. Go ahead. God asks, I love this. I love this. Listen to what God says. God says, does it make you a king to have more and more cedar? NLT says, does it make you a better king if you have a bigger house? I'm confused. You see, money is only a tool God puts in this earth. It has nothing to do with your value or what God has for you. Your role, your work is what matters. And so what is this guy's job? He's a king. And God says, so I got a question for you. Does having a bigger house make you any better at your job? Does having a bigger house make you any better at your job? He says, where am I here? Yes. He says, yeah. I forget what King James says. I'm sorry. I need to go on. Now here's where we come back to what we said in the beginning. Oh, can you go back again, Jake? I'm sorry. I missed the italics. The problem is when we want more than what the Creator has given us, we hurt others to get it. Do you remember the first 3 points? Do you remember the first 3 points? God is blessing for the rich and the poor. Well, if I take away the poor guy's lamb, he's not as blessed. Do you see that? If I cheat the poor guy, he's not as blessed. If money is all I care about, why is the Christmas Carol such a classic? Because a guy who is so selfish and greedy doesn't get rid of all of his money, but realizes the blessing of blessing other people. And suddenly he becomes a big part of his employee's life. And becomes a big part of his family's life. And he becomes a big part of his community's life. And he's happier for it. Because he realizes, what good is all his money? He's so stingy, he eats gruel. He doesn't even enjoy the money he has because he's so greedy. And he's just literally stockpiling money for no reason whatsoever, really. And so, again, he imagines a bigger house, but what good is that if we've hurt others to get what we want? Go ahead, Jake. God is blessing for the rich and the poor. He says, are you any better because you got a big house? In other words, God says, I gave you a blessing. God doesn't say, you scumbag, you got a palace. You should live in a cardboard box. Do you understand something? God gave the man to live in a palace. It's okay that he lives there. Our culture today is very confused about that. Very confused about what people have, and people are very jealous of what other people have. It's okay if some rich people get hurt because maybe he had lots of money, he probably didn't earn it anyway. That's a silly way to look at life. It's okay if a richer person has a slightly nicer car or bigger house. That's not a sin. And God may have other blessings for me, even if I don't have as much money. God might have some big blessings for me that the rich person might not have God's blessing. And then, go ahead. This is what I love. Oh, this is good. Ready? God says this. Flip the page. Like, where is it? A former godly king, his relative, his ancestor, was content with what he has as a king. He says, did not your father have food and drink? He did what was right and just, so all went well with him. He says, look, your dad lived in a palace too. Didn't your dad have food? I'm sure he ate better than the poor people. When you go into a king's palace, you expect to eat something a little nicer maybe than what the average person eats. You really do. You'd be shocked if you went into a big fancy place and they were having something very mundane. You'd be like, wow, it's really surprised. I remember I watched The Little Rascals when I was younger, and they were so poor this whole episode, they finally get rich at the end. And now they're in this big fancy place, and they have a servant bringing in food. And they've been looking forward to not eating gruel or oatmeal or hash or whatever it was. And the servant goes, today's meal is, and he takes it off, and it's whatever they didn't want to eat. It was there, and they're like, ah! They throw it out and stuff, throw it, ah! You know? When you go into a palace, you expect, God wasn't like, well, your dad was a jerk because he ate good food. He said, your dad enjoyed the blessings I had for him, but he did his job. The job of the government is not to make everything fair. They can't. Do you understand in the millennial kingdom there will be rich and poor people in the millennial kingdom where there's perfect justice? The Bible is very clear. There will be rich and poor people. Think about that for a minute. In the perfect society at the end of time, there will be people that have more than other people. And that's okay. Because God gives you what you need to do your job. And God gives you what you need to equip to do your ministry. There was once a pastor's wife who was having a bad day. I get it. She was very discouraged. She looked at it, she's like, what does this matter? She's a missionary pastor. I'm pretty sure she's a pastor wife. And finally, she said to her husband, she really complained. She's like, she just exploded. And finally, she said, we can't even afford good food to eat. He said, what would you like to eat? What would you like to eat? And he prayed, and God gave it to them. And it was a reminder that, yes, sometimes, some of us, God requires leaner parts of our lives. You know what Paul says? He says, oh, now I'm not going to quote it. He says in Philippians, not able to quote it. That really bothers me. Philippians 4. Oh, I know how to be abased. I know how to abound. Everyone in all things I'm instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Sometimes you're on top of the world, like David said before the sermon. Sometimes you're not. But if you're walking with the Lord, whether you're dirt poor or whether you have $1 million, if you are serving the Lord, there is blessing in where you're at. There is blessing in it. One of my favorite memories when I was a kid was picking strawberries. I didn't realize it was because we were poor. And picking apples that were just going to waste in a business's tree. And finally my mom's like, they don't seem to care about these apples. So afterward we went and climbed the tree and we shook them down. It was so much fun. Didn't realize, I didn't really grasp it was because we were really poor. I just knew it was really fun. And it was really fun. I'm not making that up. It was fun. It's a great memory. And by the way, so a rich kid, I wish I was poor like you. And by the way, I wasn't always poor. I wish I was poorer like you so I could, but they probably have good memories too. God has different things for us all to do. And sometimes it requires more, and sometimes it requires much less. We need to be careful we don't get jealous of other people and what God has given them. So we need to be content. The former, God's like, man, your father was content with his palace. He's content with his food. And guess what he did? He did his job. What was his job? To protect the blessing of his citizens from being taken advantage of. To protect the blessings of his citizens from being taken advantage of. They don't have as much, but they have what God's given them, and the king protected that. He said, no, you're going to have this. That's okay. I'm not going to let people take that away from you. Go ahead. Godly king did his job enforcing the golden rule. He defended the cause of the poor and needy, and so all went well. Is that not what it means to know me, declares the Lord? A nation that knows the Lord is not a nation obsessed with getting rich, getting money, or getting power. I want to grow up so I make a lot of money, some people say. What a big mistake. Are you going to be happy doing that job? How are you going to serve the Lord? How are you going to impact your fellow man? I want to work really hard so I don't have to work at all. Do you know that's not God's plan for anyone's life? God's plan is that you work till the day you die. Oh, maybe not for the boss. There's no such thing as retiring in God's kingdom. Now, your work might be different from what it used to be. Your work might be prayer. Your work might be a quieter job. Your work might be quiet words of wisdom. But your work is important. And he was doing his job. Do to others whatever you let them do to you. This is the essence of taught in the law and the prophets. How would you like to be treated? Boy, it's so easy to forget that. I get selfish. I'm like, I've got this and you've got to just move or whatever. I've got to get more. Foolishness sometimes. Foolishness sometimes. Go ahead. Sum up. God will give you what you need for your part in life, rich or poor. You are equipped. When the biggest mistake in your life and my life is to think we're not equipped. Moses started his ministry as a statesman at 80 years old. And he felt like he was the last person that should have the job. I don't know if you remember, he gave God all the reasons you shouldn't hire him. And then you know what he finally says at the end? Just get someone else. God's like, I'm not going to get someone else. By his mercy. I will give you what you need for your part in life, rich or poor. You know, when Moses went to Egypt, you know what he had in his hand? A stick. That's what he had. Think about that for a minute. You're going to face one of the most powerful kingdoms of the day with a stick in your hand. But remember how God said, raise that stick over the waters of Egypt and turn into blood. Throw down that stick, it'll turn into a snake. Remember when Pharaoh's armies were coming? Raise the stick, the water will part. Raise the stick, Moses. A piece of wood. How much wood is there out there? My grandson taught me something this week. So he's got some great toys, and I praise the Lord for what he has. But we're out in the yard, and he picks up a stick, and he's like, oh, this is good, Grandpa. And he's got 2 sticks. He's like, whoa, I got 2 sticks. And he's running around with 2 sticks. Of course, I'm watching him to make sure he's not falling or hurting all those 2 sticks. But he's living life, and he's living large. Because he's got, there's sticks all over the yard. There's a whole woods behind Uriah with sticks everywhere. There's sticks in the churchyard. There's sticks in my lawn. There's sticks in your lawn. They're everywhere. Can you imagine? Sir, could I have this stick? Yeah, take this. I don't care. Take it. It's just, But that little boy, and then sometimes he gets a rock. Now, when he doesn't put it in his mouth, mind you, because sometimes he's like, like, no. But sometimes he's like, oh, it's a rock. There are rocks all on the side of the road. But it's like, and sometimes he's like, Grandpa, would you hold the rock for me? Would you hold this for me? This is really important, Grandpa. What a blessing. So, I try not to make this up, but the Lord really showed me a lot with Uriah this week. So I wanted to take Uriah. I've been looking forward for the last 6 months to take him down to the creek. Bernard, is it called the creek? Is that what it is? I'm a city boy. I don't always know. It's the water out back of your house there with the stones. It's a creek, right? It's not a river, right? It's a creek, right?
Creek or crick?
Crick? Okay. It's a crick or a creek.
How about stream?
Stream, sure. I have been looking forward to taking Uriah to that place for months, but it's too cold, too whatever, and the spring's been really weird. I think Wanda was saying that weird spring. And so okay. Well, finally, it was a warm day, and Uriah's very happy in his front lawn. I'm like, Uriah, and I start to walk in the woods. He's like, He points back. Grandpa, the yard, Grandpa. No, I keep moving. Takes my face and he starts to not communicate with you, Grandpa, so he just pushes my face a little bit. Like, we got to go back, Grandpa. I keep walking. And finally we get to the base down, we're about halfway there. And he goes, stop, Grandpa. We're leaving a perfectly good yard. Now, to be fair to Uriah, I've taken him often on walks, but today I had a very special treat for him, and we went to the creek. You know what the creek has? Lots of stones. So valuable. And then we could throw stones in the water, or in Uriah's case, drop them in the water. We spent a half an hour there. Isn't that like us? Sometimes we don't want to learn what the Lord has for us. And sometimes we think the Lord is not going to bless us because we've been down this road before and it was okay. And we're like, I don't want to do this, Lord. I don't want to do this, Lord. I don't want to do this, Lord. I've told you before. That's how I felt at the beginning of the ministry. I don't want to do this, Lord. I don't want to do this, Lord. Do you know what? The Lord knows what he's doing. Amen? And I'll tell you what. I hope our country realizes, and hey, there were people that came to this country to get rich a long time ago. And there were people in this country that hated God a long time ago. But something interesting about America, God was so gracious and gave us a beautiful revival. And the people that came here were really seeking him. And that was before the revival. Not everyone, but a lot of people were. A lot of people that founded the country. You know, I hear about people, they're just a bunch of rich, dead white people. That's really naive to think that. A lot of these people, you read about their lives, they really cared about people. Some of them gave up money. And they were here because of the Lord. And they weren't just a bunch of dumb, rich white people or whatever. Just stupid to say anyway, amen? It's okay if there's a rich black person. It's okay if there's a rich Asian person. Like, you can't be rich. It's only going to be a white person. That'd go over well. God will give you what you need for your part in life, rich or poor. Hurting others to get what you need is not godly. Loving others sometimes means standing up to them. Isn't this what we teach children? When a child takes something in kindergarten, we say, is that yours? Is that yours? No. You need to give it back. Teacher doesn't say, well, it's unfair that so-and-so has 3 Hot Wheel cars and you don't have any. You're like, is that yours? And we don't take what doesn't belong to us. We don't take that. Right? Teach that to little children. Loving others sometimes means standing up to them. And I guess that's the thing I think our society has lost. Actually, go ahead. Example of calling out injustice. In Judges 9, I'm not going to read it right now. We've got to wrap up. But Abimelech goes... he basically, well, actually no, I'm going to mess up the story. I don't want to mess up the story. It's really good. In closing, so our society thinks the way to get peace and the way to make others like us is not have any consequences and not do anything, and that's not always true. Judges 9, and I want to start, I'm not going to, so it says 9:1, and Abimelech the son of Joel went to Shechem unto his mother's brother and communed with them, with all his family in the house of his mother's father, saying, Speak, I pray you, in the ears of all the men of Shechem, whether it better for you either that all the sons of Jerubbaal, which are 70 or 70 persons, reign over you, or that one reign over you. Remember also I am your bone and flesh. And the mother's brothers spake in the ears of Shechem, and they said, okay. And they gave him 70 pieces of silver. And he hires vain people, and you know what he does? So Abimelech, this is so evil. Abimelech goes, so Gideon has 70 kids. I don't think that was a good idea.